So here is Asia Live then, and today we're going to be heading to our France 24 bureau in Beijing. In fact, we're going to be joining Shannon Van Sant. Shannon, China's been mocking the US a little bit over its debt default, I gather there.
That's right. China has been harshly critical of the United States, especially in the Chinese state media. State media has even urged has urged the creation of a de-Americanized world and urged the adoption of another currency other than the American US dollar as the world's global currency. So the US debt ceiling has really made many, many headlines across China in both China Daily and the state-run Global Times. Of course, China has a huge interest in the United States resolving its debt impasse and extending the debt ceiling. China holds more than 1.3 trillion US dollars in treasury bonds, and China has been adding to its foreign currency exchange reserves over the last few years for both economic and political reasons. So if the United States fails to come to an agreement to extend that debt ceiling, the value of those U.S. Treasury bonds will dramatically drop, and that will negatively impact the Chinese economy. So Chinese state media predictably has been incredibly critical of the United States for failing to come to a resolution on this problem.
And Shannon, I gather that China has also, in a separate story, sent riot police to block new protests by flood victims there.
That's right. That's in a province called Zhejiang, which is not far from Shanghai. And flooding there had left more than 70% of the roads impassable. And varying reports say that between 10,000 people and up to 1 million people have been protesting in that province. And they've been protesting because of lack of adequate relief efforts. And they also feel that the TV coverage and the local news coverage of the flooding was untruthful, that perhaps people died in the floods, that local journalists did not report. So a tremendous number of protests in Zhejiang, and the Chinese government has responded with force there. But let's turn to other news here in China. On a much lighter note, Chinese characters here are incredibly difficult to write and to read, even for Chinese, as we find in this report.
Xiangbing, Ping, Zhezhou, and Jing are well-educated young Shanghainese. We gathered them in a cafe for a Chinese character dictation exercise. They have to write 10 words that are not easy, but commonly used phrases in everyday life.
I'm asking you to write the word elegant.
They concentrate hard, and after some hesitation, their scores are surprising.
I was wrong for the first character of the expression bright color. I was right on notorious, so I've got 7 right and 3 wrong.
I got 2 right and 8 wrong.
During their early school years, they repeatedly wrote 5,000 characters in class. In China, students learn ideograms by writing them, but students forget how after they finish university, and new technologies are to blame.
I used to write love letters by hand in the past. I was better then, but now we've forgotten more and more characters because we have computers and smartphones.
We have special input methods on our computers. First, we type the pronunciation of the character we want in Latin script. A list of characters similar to that sound appears on screen. For example, here I type Ti Shuai, which means cricket, and the first option suggested by the computer is the one I want.
The decline of calligraphy is being debated in Chinese media, and recent TV game shows dedicated to Chinese ideograms have earned big audiences. Here, viewers realize that 30% of show participants can't write the word frog. For conservative commentators, Chinese identity itself is now under threat.
Chinese characters are 5,000 years old. They are deeply connected to our culture and civilization. If China loses calligraphy, the country will lose its culture. This will stop the progress of our civilization.
But thanks to computers and social networks, Chinese write now more than ever. For the new generation, digital writing makes life easier and saves time for studying other subjects, such as English.
Yeah, that report there on the Chinese characters. Thanks so much to Shannon as well from joining us from Beijing. Coming up in the next hour here on France 24, I'm staying with you today. We'll be more on, of course, what's been happening in the US. We heard about half an hour, in fact, President Barack Obama signing that legislation to end the US government shutdown and raise the debt limit. Signed it just over half an hour ago, and we'll bring you the latest right after the break here on France 24.